Good evening. Melburnians will have to endure 7 more agonising days of lockdown before finding out if they can visit loved ones outside the 5-kilometre zone. The Premier says small but significant steps on the roadmap will be unveiled next Sunday, but 12 new cases today ended any hope of a full easing of restrictions. He's also revealed he'll hand over his phone records to the hotel quarantine inquiry at the board's request, all as the majority of school students prepare to return to the classroom. State political reporter Andrew Lund begins tonight's coverage.
As Melburnians sat down to a socially distant Sunday lunch, the Premier was serving sweet and sour.
There will be steps that will be able to be taken next Sunday. They will not be as big a steps as we had perhaps hoped, but they will be significant. And they will allow us to move more freely. They will allow us to connect more easily with those that we love the most, those that we miss the most.
He's confirmed the government is considering lifting the 5-kilometre travel restriction, increasing outdoor gathering limits and allowing more outdoor work. But desperate to reopen, many businesses may be forced to wait.
For many of us, the pain of uncertainty is far greater than the certainty of pain.
It came as Victoria recorded 12 new cases, with Melbourne's rolling average daily case number now 9.3, still stubbornly higher than the target of 5 needed before next weekend.
It'll probably be mathematically impossible after we get more than no cases tomorrow. However, we'll be guided by those numbers as they unfold throughout the week.
The death toll has risen by 1 to 810, while the number of active cases has dropped by 3 to 189. But mystery cases remain a problem. In the past 2 weeks, there have been 10, including 1 new case in the Ashburton-Ashwood area and another in the postcode covering Sydenham, Taylors Hill, Delahaye, Hillside and Calder Park.
If we're the first in the world to get to a point where we can completely snuff out a second wave, then no one will be happier than me.
2 new cases have been linked to Box Hill Hospital and the cluster at Chadstone has grown by 1 to 33, while 2 family outbreaks have been identified in the western suburbs, one with 5 cases, the other with 3.
We are wrapping every single case with a public health response that is really, in my opinion, robust.
All 5 active cases in regional Victoria are linked to the Kilmore cluster, and with Melbourne lagging behind, restrictions for the rest of the state could be relaxed even further.
I think there'll be some room to move to a, if I can call it better and worse, a better set of rules in regional Victoria and a better set of rules in metropolitan Melbourne, but it won't be that full third step.
In the wake of the Kilmore outbreak, the government's announced regional venues will now be required to check their customers are not from metropolitan Melbourne or face a fine of almost $10,000, while close contacts of any confirmed case will also be required to take a test on day 11 of isolation.
Should you choose not to test at day 11, you will be required to continue your quarantining for a further 10 days.
I fully acknowledge that people are getting very weary. They're getting very fatigued. They're getting frustrated. We all are. We all want this to be over.
But in another sign it's not, the government has extended the state of emergency and state of disaster declarations for another 4 weeks.
We're well into the last quarter and people's legs are tired. The game is very tight and you've just got to dig deep and find, all of us, and find a way to get to that final siren. That is what we have to do.
And Andrew Lund joins us now live from State Parliament. Andrew, given that football analogy, will the pubs be open for Grand Final Day?
That's a good question, Alicia. With less than 2 weeks to go, the government says it's still too early to say. Much will obviously depend on how those case numbers track this week. But Daniel Andrews raised hopes by bringing forward the proposed date for Melbourne taking the next step. So today he was clearly trying to manage some of those expectations. The government will likely face plenty of questions about its plans for reopening when Parliament sits this week. It will also face questions about its COVID omnibus bill, but having conceded defeat and dumped the controversial preventative detention provisions, that should be one less thing the Premier needs to worry about. Alicia?